today with the Crossroads. This is my first time here, so I don't know. Well, welcome to Northminster. And we have. Oh, right.
For the recording.
Oh, okay. That today we are talking about the hospital ministry and the jail ministry of the, just the hospital chaplain. Okay. And so welcome. And I turn it over to Rachel and John.
So I'm going to move around. Hi, I'm Reverend Rachel Helgeson. Some of you might recognize me. I am the manager of spiritual care at UHS. I formerly was the director of hospital ministry, and now John, who works with me, is the director of hospital ministry at the Broome County Council of Churches, and my contract is as the manager of spiritual care at UHS. You may be like, what? You wouldn't be surprised. Nobody else understands it, but I will explain. The one piece that's really wonderful about that is that UHS has decided to ground spiritual care as part of the hospital's mission, especially when a lot of hospitals right now are cutting spiritual care. I'm finding a lot from my colleagues around the Southern Tier. They were just surprised that a hospital would want to do this right now. They're looking. A lot of hospitals are looking at bottom line. They're looking at like what is the thing that's supposed to happen, and it it's a sad thing because we all want all of the hospitals to flourish. Every hospital that's able to have holistic care means that the whole community is better. So I just want to be very clear that while I work for UHS, I have colleagues in chaplaincy that I support, and I also support my healthcare friends and colleagues across the borders. And I think I think sometimes we get so caught up in the camps that we're in that we forget about how are we caring for our community. And that's the one thing that spiritual care we get at the base of. I wanted to start with a poem that I love. I don't know if any of you know Mary Oliver, but if she's like one of my favorites. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who's moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. And I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel into the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it your plan to do with your one wild and precious life? The reason I start with that is people are always asking when they get to the hospital, I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done this. I hear lots of shoulds. I'm going to start off with knock that off. It's so easy to get stuck in should, coulds, and woulds. We are where we are is where we are, right? And if you're in healthcare for some reason, there's probably something that's led to it. A lot of people think that it's a scary place to be. For our healthcare workers, a lot of them are traumatized. If you're watching The Pit, which has been a weird situation for me to watch it right now because I lived in Pittsburgh and that was where my ordaining presbytery. So when they talk about stuff, I'm like, um, there's a lot of things in that show that's probably closer to what's going on in healthcare than other healthcare shows that I've seen. I remember talking to Laura about this about another show, and we were like, that show, nah. We won't throw those other the bus, but just know that The Pit's probably on a better trajectory than some of the others. I will say though, how often do you see a chaplain in those shows? Bing, bing, bing. Why is that? Well, it's because chaplains sort of slip in. We are present. We sit with people where they are, and then we're out. So it's kind of like we're there, but we're not, right? And chaplains are probably the worst at telling you about like that we were there. Like our healthcare workers know that we were there, but people are like, "What? I don't know what a chaplain is." How many times, John, have you been said, "What is a chaplain?" Right? They don't know what a chaplain is, or if we say spiritual care, sometimes people are like, "Oh, like, well, I'm not religious." Okay, cool. So that's one of the things I want to make sure that you hear too. Chaplaincy, we're there for folks no matter what their journey is, whether they are religious, they are not, whether they have a philosophy, they are not, they have their own faith tradition or they don't. Wherever they are, we meet them on their journey, right where they are in that moment. Um, it's kind of great. I have two of my volunteers here. One is your pastor, and Bob, right behind you, has been a long time volunteer with us. They come from very different traditions. And that's the thing, too. We meet folks no matter what their philosophy, belief system, ethics are, we're there for them. Um, we try to advocate for folks in their faith, spirituality, or whatever. So, like for my Jehovah's Witnesses, I will say no blood transfusions. For my Jewish patients, if I know that they're kosher, I will make sure to put on their chart that they eat kosher. During Lent, for my Catholic folks, I was like, they observe Lent. Not that Presbyterians don't observe Lent, but we just observe it a little differently. You can eat fish on Friday if you want to because you like the Catholic Church, but you don't have to as a Protestant. So um, and the list goes on, right? So we try to advocate for folks and what they're doing. One of the things that recently has come up, um, you may not know this, but the Southern Tier is a lot more diverse than you might think it is. Part of that is because there was a large refugee commitment to this community, and in doing so, there's a larger diverse population. They're just usually a lot quieter about being diverse until they walk into the hospital. Um, so things like considering if somebody is Muslim, can a male doctor walk in while she has her hijab off? The answer is no. Um, is this something that our ethics committee had to talk about? And I was in the middle of a conversation to say, hey, we need to advocate for women and what they want. Oh, yes. Did that provider find that kindly? Was it a female provider? It was not. um, so there's different things. And sometimes people just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And having a spiritual care provider, we can help make those connections. God's calling. I just thought Dr. Bishop was on call or something. Um, so, so we do a lot of that. We also meet people on at the beginning of life. Um, so sometimes for some of our patients that are Christian and they're looking for an emergency baptism, we're present for that if needed. Um, Sometimes we have folks who need a blessing on their wedding or they want to get married. I have done weddings at the hospital. I actually did a renewal of vows on Friday um, for a patient who is at end of life, and they wanted to make sure they did that. It was the most moving thing I've done, and I got to see her and her family, and it was meaningful for all of them too. So also we meet a lot of people on all sorts of trauma situations. I had a chaplain who was available during, if you've heard anything about the many different firefighter situations that have come through the doors, there is a chaplain present for that. We've had chaplains who have been available for other community-wide events that come up because we always have a chaplain on staff at UHS, and they're on call. So sometimes also, I will not use the keyword, but sometimes things are calm, um, but sometimes things are not. And when they're not, things seem to just keep rolling in. And chaplains also provide care for our healthcare providers too. Um, I I am part of a group called the peer-to-peer group, where we go after a traumatic situation and we sit with our healthcare providers and staff after they've experienced a trauma. Um, I can't tell you how many staff are just like, man, I just wish I had known about this. And once they know, then they tell their colleagues, right? Because we need to tend to healthcare providers. This is, if you get nothing else out of tonight, Um, Please be kind to your healthcare providers. They have seen and heard and experienced a lot. And many who made it through COVID, we're 6 years out now, which is wow. Um, they didn't really get to process that. They just had to keep going. So, um, so be gentle on them. You know, they're gonna, I will tell you, nurses and doctors are stoic and they're not gonna like let you see that. I see a couple of y'all over there. Um, just be gentle with them, please. Okay. Like they have gifts, and if they decided to stay in the southern tier, there must be a calling to that. Okay. Like, so um, so be gentle. And to me, all those things are about calling. And folks who go into chaplaincy as volunteers or as staff, it is calling because we're trying to tend to the souls that are around us. When I was, we, for professional chaplains, there's a program that we go through called clinical pastoral education, um, where we tend to those things, where we meet people and listen. We do active listening. Do any of you know what active listening is, or compassionate listening? I see nods. What I don't hear answers though. Just wondering what your definition of active listening might be. That's on the right track. Can you go a little further with that? Or you can pass it off to a friend. Right. Yep.
Then you ask clarification about it.
Yep. And staying curious with people. A lot of us forget to be curious because we go in with an idea of, oh, you're from this neighborhood in the southern tier and went to this high school. I think it's funny because I didn't go to high school here. So people will ask me, well, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, my kids go to UE. And then like there's a whole narrative that they've created about me, right? Or, oh, we lived in Emmy. Oh, okay. So there's a different narrative, right? Like, or my kids go to Irish dance and Vestal. Oh, there's another narrative, right? Um, if you're curious and say, oh, can you tell me a little bit more about that? You might find out, no, actually, they were transplants here from someplace else, but they've just decided that their narrative is that because it's easier to do that than explain that they moved from such and such a place because they got a job here for whatever reason, and or there was some sort of family situation and they came back. Just remain curious. Um, that's probably the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from clinical pastoral education is paying attention to what my stuff is, because we all have stuff. Guess what? Everybody has stuff. And right. And also recognizing that other people have stuff too. And so when we immediately are making mind reads on people, we don't give them a chance to be fully present, and we don't get to be fully present with them. So chaplains try to reflect that and give space for that. Um, I wanted to read we made our mission statement. This was about a couple years ago, wasn't it, John? Um, the mission of UHS's spiritual care department is to journey with others right where they are, and if befitting, assist them with their personal discovery, what brings them peace and support in their lives. This includes the care of all patients, staff, families, and loved ones as appropriate. UHS's multi-faith staff and volunteer chaplains are grounded in their faith traditions. I say that to every person that I interview. I want you to be grounded in your faith or spirituality. Like it's important because we need to know where we are and what we're about, while also recognizing other people might be in a different space than us. So, so volunteers and chaplains are grounded in their faith traditions while welcoming and serving all people, regardless of religion, belief, age, race, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, abilities, disabilities, or used language. And that's been a cool thing too, is that you might think like, oh, everybody speaks English in the Southern tier. Meh. We have Bengalese, Spanish. That's just today, right? I'm thinking about Laotian. There's a big Laotian community. Italian. There's Italians, Indian. Yep. different dialects of Indian, like Hindi. Actually, I had to ask our head psychologist. I was like, which one is this? He's like, oh, Rachel, there's 52 languages in India. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, thanks, Dr. M. So yeah, so that's the thing, that those translators are really great. And I have found there was a Haitian patient that I worked with the second year I was in there, and they were very sick, and the family was appreciative that we didn't just speak French at them, because Haitian French is different than, yeah, it's Creole, and it's not American Creole, it's Haitian Creole. So they're just grateful that I had an interpreter in there. I mean, I studied French, so I know enough, but I don't know all the dialectic things that are in Haitian Creole. So, so those are things to consider. So we try to, well, when we can, we try to meet that too. This echoes UHS's core values of compassion, trust, respect, teamwork, and innovation. The spiritual care team is a key part of the interdisciplinary care of all who enter and seek interfaith interactions at UHS. Now, I thought that last part was a little bit of a lip service until, like, I've had executives say to me they didn't realize how much they needed spiritual care too. So my thing to echo to you, and you'll hear a little bit more from John about the volunteering piece of it and that part. And I have a couple of volunteers so they can also answer questions when we get to that part. That spiritual care, the best way to get spiritual care is to let us know that you need it, because we prioritize the folks who say, I need a chaplain. And I tell that to my staff too. I'm like, hey, I'll be rounding. Um, if you need anything, sometimes that's what they don't want to physically come to you, but like if they know that you're around and they've gotten to recognize you, that's helpful, right? Or just to know that the chaplain's there. But if somebody specifically needs something specific, the best way to do it is to call the spiritual care department or have our healthcare providers put a little thing in Epic for us, so we make sure that we prioritize them. Um, so if you find yourself in the hospital and you're like, man, why didn't Pastor Pat show up? She can't know that because of HIPAA. So don't blame your pastor. Right. And that's the other thing. Even though Pastor Ernie is a volunteer, he doesn't have access to the whole census because he is a volunteer, which is different than staff. So he can't physically go through and be like, you know what? So and so from Northminster and so from Union, we're here. I mean, we're not allowed to do that. Like I will look if there's Presbyterians and I'll try to make a list based off of what I see. So if you didn't put you're a Presbyterian, well, that's problem number one. Problem two is, like, you can't really assume that we know that even if that's there. So if you really want somebody to come in, let your nurse know or let your social worker know, and they will put a thing in for us. Um, so I'll, this has become my platform. Let us know. Don't blame your pastor. Let us know. Don't blame your pastor. Oh, it's 3 times, right? That's when people remember. Okay. Let us know. Don't blame your pastor. Okay, so just know that, like, we're a resource, and let your friends know that too, because quite often your friends are the ones that are like, can you believe that Pastor Ernie didn't show up for me? And your first question should be like, did you let Pastor Ernie know? Well, he should just know. Now, I know my dad used to go when I was younger, and I used to go with him, and you could just walk in and they would just tell you they don't do that anymore. So especially for your older folks, they may think that that's still may have that memory. So to be fair, go in with curiosity. I wonder why you think that, right? Because they just may not know, or they may not remember that. So just remind them, like, oh no, they can't just go in. Okay. And we do observe HIPAA. So, and very careful about that, because sometimes people don't want you to know that they're there. That's the other side too. So say you're in the hospital and you're like, I just want to be spiritual care, but I don't want you to tell Pastor Ernie that I'm here. I'm not going to tell Pastor Ernie you're here, because there might be something that you're working through for yourself. And that's okay. So just know that that's another piece of it too. So that's my little educational piece for you. If we don't know what we don't know, and HIPAA is a thing. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to John so he can talk about his part. And then we'll have a little time at the end where you can ask questions from my volunteers and from me or from John. John is the director of hospital ministry through Broome County Council of Churches. You may have also seen him recently. He also serves as a chaplain with the jail ministry with Reverend Chris Morganson. So Andy's a pastor, so he just wears 1,000 hats.
Thank you, Rachel. Hey, Ernie, can you hand those out for me? Just got a little handout here. The Council of Churches is doing a little rebranding. As Rachel mentioned, my name's Reverend John Snider. I serve as Director of Hospital Ministries. I also serve as a chaplain in the morning at the jail. So I spend my morning in the jail, then my afternoons, usually at BGH, and then Fridays I'm at Wilson. So Binghamton General, most of my days. I like Wilson. I love Binghamton General Hospital. So I think the world of the staff there. Reverend Rachel mentioned a lot of what we do. A part of what we do is that staff care, and I think at BGH I have the ability to do staff care on a better level than at Wilson. Wilson, it's much harder, even just to get to know the staff, let alone to provide staff care. And oftentimes, relationships allow us to have permission to give a level of care, and you can form those relationships at BGH much easier. So I find myself doing just as much staff care as I do chaplain or patient care for patients at BGH, and I think maybe that's why I love it. I want to tell you a little about the Council of Churches. You probably have heard from the Council of Churches and this idea of how we're made up. Today we're going to talk about our history, partnership with local hospitals, the role of staff and volunteer chaplains, impact on staff and patients, other services provided by the council, and chaplain recruitment. And then obviously we'll have a question and answer period for everyone. At the Council of Churches, we believe in this idea that we're connecting compassion with needs and inspiring growth with dignity. The Council of Churches was formed in 1941 by a group of 26 churches, and the primary mission at the time was, guess what? Hospital and jail ministry. I know the Council of Churches is known for CHOW, and I mean, which rightly so. I mean, they do an amazing work at CHOW, but actually the Council of Churches was formed around the idea of jail and hospital ministry. So well, were they? I didn't even know that. So yeah. Shout out to Presbyterians. So yeah, and so the council is celebrating 85 years this year, and so is the jail ministry, and the hospital ministry is also celebrating. They formally organized, were incorporated in 1959, approximately 150 members, and that number kind of fluctuates. There's about 289 churches in our database right now. And if you could get a hold of all those, you'd be lucky. I mean, I've pulled them and reached out to them numerous times, and you can get about 7 to call you back. So, but there's 289 there in the database. The vision, the Broome County Council of Churches, is a community organization that fosters collaboration and service through its various programs and initiatives. And the mission, the council's mission, is to connect faith community with community needs through various programs, including chaplaincy, outreach, education, and social justice initiatives. The partnership with local hospital is actually very unique. We don't see this very many places in the rest of the country, where the Broome County Council of Churches is actually provides chaplains and chaplain care inside the hospital system. In most hospital systems, it's all just them. In fact, I was with Guthrie yesterday, met with Guthrie Health yesterday, because because they're just in a need. They need chaplains also. And so what was that? No, they did. So you're right, they do. Yeah. And so why the conversation was, one night I was on call. I don't know, 5 or 6 days a month I'm on call. And I get a call from the switchboard at UHS, and they're like, I know this is weird, but Lourdes is calling. And I said, what do they need? A priest. I said, it's Lourdes. Yeah. Yeah. And so I said, okay, well, let's get him a priest. And so I used our on-call list and got him a priest. And there was one other occasion they called and it just needed a little help, and we helped them. And so that was like the thought was, well, what can we do to help them? Because that's our job at the Council of Churches is, I mean, we just connect the community and connect other organizations with other faith communities. And so what can we do to help you guys? And so I met with them yesterday, and we'll see if they're interested in us helping them get some volunteer chaplains there and build a new volunteer culture, much like we've done at the council, and much as what Rachel has done, currently serving about 10,800 patients annually. Right now we have 15 trained chaplains. I started volunteering in 2014 as a volunteer. There was just a couple of us back then. The whole medical system was much different, and the way we interacted with patients and everything was different at UHS back then. And then I left during COVID. Everyone was asked to leave during COVID. And then fortunately, I came back, and Rachel was the director at that time and started volunteering. And then they were very desperate and hired me. And so the rest is history. So, so, so not a lie, she said. No. So the role of staff chaplains, we're professionally trained, formally educated. In fact, when we hire a staff chaplain, we insist that if they don't already have clinical pastoral education, that they get that training. And we're integrated into the team. Like as I said, I spent a lot of time at Binghamton General Hospital, and I really enjoyed the fact that I spent so much time there, because I can just go to a doctor. I know the doctors and talk about whatever case I need to talk about, whatever type of issue it is, whether it's an ethics issue, a care issue. I know the nurses so well now too. I just go to the nurse. Oftentimes when I walk on the floor, I don't have to ask. They just come to me and they say, Pastor John, go here, go here, go here, go there, go there. I don't know if they started this thing at BJ's to call me Jesus John. I don't know why, but yes. So I'll come on the floors and like, Jesus John. Yeah. And so depends on the day. Also, staff chaplains serve in specialized roles, as Rachel mentioned. When ethic concerns come up, or they ask us. Sometimes there's some major stuff with patients that have been in long-term care, don't really have family that can take care of them, and we have to kind of intervene, and the hospital has to intervene for them. Role of volunteer chaplains: they provide supplemental support, diverse backgrounds. They also provide a connection to community. They also can serve in focused roles too. So we can assign them to just one wing or just one type of patients, and we have volunteers that do that also. And they also provide support for the staff, and many of them are well known, and especially Wilson, where we have the largest number of volunteers I think serving now. It's not uncommon for me to walk in on Friday and hear about our volunteers and hear about our staff chaplains on Friday, even though I'm only there that limited amount of time. Impact of the hospital staff: we provide emotional support, crisis intervention, moral and ethical guidance. It's not uncommon. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 different nurses, one actual doctor, no, 2 doctors now that I will see on a regular basis in my office that just, we have the door open, they come in and they need to close the door, and we just need to talk about life. And so we provide that kind of service as well. We provide emotional and spiritual support, improved patient outcomes. It's proven. Patients do better with spiritual care than patients that don't have it. And we also provide end of life guidance. According to an article from the Journal of Palliative Medicine, spiritual care provided by chaplains is associated with improved patient outcomes, including better coping, reduced anxiety, and enhanced overall well-being. Unfortunately, too, what we're seeing is long-term patients now, social issues. We can't find a nursing home for them. And I'll have to say, I'm super impressed how UHS goes the extra, and then the extra mile again with these type of patients. I have 2 patients that I can think of right now that I've almost been seeing for a year. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then some really young, some children too, that have been in like for a long, long time. They've been there and they need a type of special care that is hard to get on the outside or to find a facility that will receive them based on their social needs. And UHS sticks with them. And it's just really impressive to see what they do. So the Broome Council of Churches also has other services. Everyone knows CHOW. Everyone knows what CHOW does. Faith in Action Volunteers, amazing ministry. I'm kind of partial to the hospital and jail, but it's probably because I work there. Greater Good Groceries is a part of the Broome Council of Churches, and actually is going to at some point officially move under, like fully under our umbrella. We also have the Ramp Up program. Also, right now, if you know somebody in Binghamton, there's a special grant right now going on for ramps in Binghamton. And then our newest, Manna, we take unused food and make it into prepared meals. I think today they announced 45,000 meals, prepared meals from food that would have gone in the garbage can. Yeah. Yay. Awesome. We've had an opportunity to eat those meals numerous times now. In fact, they don't have to cater. They just call the Manna guy. And that poor guy, I mean, he's catering everything now, but the food is amazing. We did I think it was a board of directors thing. Manna came in and did it. And we had steak and filet mignon from Darden Foods that had donated the food that was going to go to waste. It was going to go in the garbage can. And so we're eating steak and filet mignon. It was pretty nice. Yeah. So, and then our encounter program, you find that on the TV. Future partnerships. The Broome Council of Churches has ongoing commitment to enhance spiritual care, strengthen volunteer chaplain programs, expand the partnership and impact through new initiatives. We're actually working on 2 grants right now that would fund 2 additional chaplains on staff. One grant's for $20,000 and the other is for $25,000. And those grants would allow us to provide training on trauma-informed care and additional training. The other one will also allow us to provide training directly for the staff at UHS. So, hey, say a prayer for us when those one of those grants is getting ready to get submitted. I was in a meeting actually yesterday about that as well. And so that grant's coming close. So goal for the future, more volunteer engagement. We aim to double the number of active volunteers. It was funny when we did this, when I wrote this a couple years ago now, wasn't it? When we started this chaplain recruitment, yeah. And that grant came from you guys. And when we wrote this, I think there was like 4 volunteers. And I was like, yeah. Yeah, there was only just a handful of volunteers. And so the goal in our mind was like, let's get to 8. You know what I mean? And that was like, now we're like 15. So increase training opportunities and foster a culture of ongoing learning and support. And I really think that the connection that Rachel's made with Crossroads of Caring, also I went there for my CPE. That connection has been just amazing. So Crossroads of Caring is an organization that provides clinical pastoral education, and they're based in Rochester. They have a model though that's awesome because you can do distance learning. It's tough though because a 5-hour Zoom call one night a week is long. But I was working full time as an executive pastor at a large church and was able to do CPE and work part time and do clinical hours and everything. So you can do it. You can do it. So it provides a way for people to actually get the training. And I think that training is super important to have. So if you're going to be a chaplain. Goal for the future: strengthen community partnership, deepen ties with local churches and community organizations, expand outreach to diverse faith communities. And that's the one that we actually really need to kind of move up to the top, the diverse faith communities. We're really good at engaging Christians. I think we've got that down. We can get Christian volunteers. I mean, we can, but we need other faith communities. How the community can help: you can become a volunteer, advocate for awareness, share information about our program, share information about the Council of Churches. The steps: there's a number to call. You would attend an interview, usually with Rachel, sometimes me. Undergo a background check and verification, and begin some orientation and initial training. Benefits of volunteering: personal fulfillment, skill development, and community service. I started as a volunteer in 2014. I didn't know it would turn into my career in ministry, but I'm glad it did. So that's all I have. If anyone's got questions.
So one of the things that we are always looking for in new volunteers, you heard John say that. So it may not be you, but the way that we have found our best volunteers have been from somebody who has come to this. Ernie actually came to one of these things, and he was like, I was a chaplain. Why can't I do that? And I was like, yeah, why can't you, Ernie? And it was great because Ernie is Lutheran and he is Presbyterian. So when he comes to do visits, part of what he does, his specialty, particularly, is it okay if I share one thing about your health journey? I want to make sure I have permission before I say that. Okay. So Ernie has had some heart stuff. And so part of his own mission has been to go and visit people with heart stuff. And it's been beautiful because he can talk to them and say, hey, you have heart stuff? Feel you. What are you doing? How is that going? What's your care? Yeah, I would love for you to talk about that. Just 1 second. Bob has been with us for forever. Yeah, not quite yet. Yep. Bob has been with us for forever. He's Wesleyan, but he's also has a pretty varied background. He was Lutheran. Bob is also worked in healthcare and then is an engineer. Bob. Yep. So Bob's really good at like walking in and seems to know folks without even knowing them. It's true. And then he'll come back and he's like, Rach, I have this story. And I'm not saying that to mock. It is usually, he gets plumbed down to the depths of it. And so each of my team members, volunteers and staff have different gifts. And that has been a gift to me to watch them and their gift set, which is why I want Ernie and Bob to have a moment to talk with you all. So I will. But if you know somebody who's like looking for something, you can have them talk to us. I will also say there are times when people come and are like, I'm just wondering about this. And they talk to us and they're like, woo, not me. And that's okay. Like that's part of discernment. For those of us in the Reformed tradition, we believe in that, right? Part of discernment is figuring out what your call is and finding where that fire is. So wherever the fire is, and that fire will change. Sometimes you'll be in a season where it's like, I'm in the middle of work, or I'm in the middle of raising children, or I'm grandma right now and I'm the primary grandma. Those are all parts of call. So finding where the fire is, sometimes it's by asking and interviewing and talking, is to say, oh, actually there is a light switch there that I didn't know was there, or nope, not me, but you know what? I know my friend has been looking for a thing and maybe you're the person that helps them discern what it is. So know that that's part of how we discern if it's the right call for you. And that's usually when we do the interview, I'll say, it's okay if it's a no. If it's okay if it's no. Sometimes there's freedom in saying that. So I think a lot of times we think we all have to do the thing. Maybe you don't, but maybe the thing is discernment. So I am going to turn this over to Ernie so he could talk a little bit more about what he's done as a volunteer, and then have a little bit from Bob too, so they can answer questions from the volunteer side of things.
Back last year, I had a heartfelt problem and I needed a replacement. And so I had a heart catheterization and then a valve replacement. And it was an interesting journey. Lucky I had a lot of people that I could call for being chaplains there for me that day. But when I heard about this program for being a volunteer, I said, I got to go there. And I chose Wilson because that's what my heart is, because of the care. But one of the things that I do now is I go to the cardiac units, both cardiac ICU and for the cath lab and a valve replacement and other things. I have a chance to talk with them. And one of the things that they're anxious. Some of them are afraid. Some of them don't know what to expect. And when I say to them, been there, done that, it's a big help. And that's one of the most joyful occasions at the hospital, because I have had 4 units of CPE. I also go down to the emergency room and talk about fear and anxiety. That's high level there. And thank you, Rachel, for allowing me to go there, because they have special needs. They need to be, they're anxious and they want to get over that anxiety, because anxiety is not going to help them recover. And so it was a great experience to be going there. I mean, I learned so much I learned more about sometimes a patient of what they do in their life. I could go into a room, well, as my congregation has hopefully experienced by now, I could talk about anything. And I mean, I found people that have met presidents. I find out about their walk. And sometimes I'm in there for about 10, 15 minutes listening to their story. And they want to tell their story. So I found it to be a great experience for being a chaplain there at Wilson. It's not for everybody, but if you are called to want to do something, especially if you find yourself, hey, I got this great amount of time on my hands, you can volunteer and be a hospital volunteer chaplain. And you could go to one floor. And normally that's as a volunteer, you go to one floor, or you're assigned a unit, or you assign particular places to go. And so you don't have to take on, I'm going to have to visit everybody in the hospital. No, you just touch base with them and you listen to them. And if you feel comfortable praying for them, pray for them. And that I think is important. They want to have sometimes somebody to listen to, be listened to, and they want to be also, they want prayer. And if you feel comfortable doing that, but also remember, don't pray about all these big things. Pray about them and their healing. And it's a great experience because you see the hand of God really working through you, through the people, to the people. So it's been a great experience. I've been there since end of September. I begin October. And I look forward to my days. Mondays and Thursdays are like chaplaincy days. And I look forward to it. So it's been great.
Hi, I'm Bob Prentice. Can you hear me? I didn't intend to speak tonight, but I'm happy to. I've been at UHS as a volunteer for 10 years and I'm heading into my 11th. And I got involved because a chaplain, a volunteer chaplain said, hey, we really need some help. Would you like to come and help? And I thought, well, maybe. And I said, what do you do? And they told me, and I said, maybe you want to go pray about it. And I said, well, no, the Bible tells us to go visit the sick. I'll give it a try. And if it doesn't work out, I'll stop. And heading into my 11th year, I'm still there, you know. And for me, it's easy and a joy to do because I get to visit everyone. And I do cold call. They tell me who not to visit. I get a list of who not to visit.
Yeah.
And so I go off and I just start down a hall and I use some judgment. Like if the door is closed, I don't go in. If there's a doctor in there, I don't go in. If there's someone who looks like they're in a compromised situation, I don't go in. And when someone's sitting there, then that's a person. And so I've ended up mainly I visit Christians and people who are various positions of Christian, and people who are non-practicing Christians, or people who are spiritual, and a lot of people who are not. I've visited Muslims, I've visited Hindus, and it was really I've had a Muslim ask me to bless them, and I thought, oh, may God bless you. That was the best I could do, but typically I come into a situation and they don't know who I am, so they'll tell us to wear they used to tell us wear a big cross so people know who you are, and so that the nurses know that you're there and you're not medical. And I come in and I just tell them, hi, I'm Bob Prentice from Spiritual Care. And I just stop by to say hi. And many of them will say, well, hi, or they'll just look at me. And I say, I'm with a group. We stop around and just chat with people because this can be kind of a boring place. So all of a sudden the anxiety just dropped. And I said, and we visit with everyone. And it dropped again. I said, we visit with Christians, non-Christians, and we visit with everyone, and even those who have no faith. Now they're ready to talk, or not. And I'll say, and because this can be a boring place, we just stop by and just chat. And some people will just take that and go with it. Other people will look at me and I say, and they'll just look, and we're waiting a little bit. I said, or it can be intimidating. And, we might just have a mild chat, and I try not to talk. I always try to have an open-ended discussion with them. And if it's not going very far, I'll say, well, what do you like to do when you're not here? Or did you grow up around here? And that can often just start progressing. And this past couple of weeks, I felt I shared with Reverend Rachel. I said I felt like the little boy who'd been out on the beach after the storm, and there were all of these starfish laying on the beach, and I felt like I was just throwing them back into the ocean because I couldn't make an impact for the whole beach, but I helped those. And I came in with people who had high anxiety for having what they were going through, because it can be a stressful place. And I just asked this one man, like he was high anxiety, and while he was there, he was all monitored up, and people came running in because the monitor started going off. And I'm going, oh, I'm getting ready to step back. But so his anxiety was high, and we were talking. I says, well, what do you like to do when you're not here? And he says, well, I'm retired. I says, well, what did you used to do? I was a builder. I said, did you have any special projects you worked on that you really enjoyed? When we finished, his high anxiety had dropped right down low, and he had a level of peace upon him. And I felt so good. And we carry around, we have things we hand out. And I often hand a person like an Our Daily Bread. I say, would you like an Our Daily Bread? And if a person, sometimes it's really easy. You walk in, a person will see me and say, will you pray for me? Well, all of a sudden that visit just became, yes, but let's talk a little bit first. And so I hand them Our Daily Bread, and they say, no, thanks. I said, well, thank you. I said, well, it's been wonderful talking to you. I wish you well. And I step out. If I hand them Our Daily Bread and they say, well, thank you so much, then I'll say, can I offer a prayer for you? And if they say yes, then I'll pray for them. But it's up in the air. I don't make prayer the primary thing. I make just spending time with them, and I feel like it's been a success if they felt relieved and comfortable when I left. And I see that so many times. And sometimes people will want to engage, they'll have some deep questions. And if they want to go too deep, or if someone wants to question me theologically, I tell them, I'm not here to talk theology. I said, but if you want to, we can get someone down here who can help you, you know? And typically if they say that, that's enough. We don't need to go there. And so a lot of the times I'll have people who might just be questioning their own faith, or maybe they've had something spiritual happen to them and they would just like to share it with someone. And they don't want to share it with the nurses. They don't want to share it with anyone else, and I'll just listen. And I don't judge. I don't give any. I try really. My wife's a therapist and she gives me, you got to do this, it's don't be raising your eyebrows. Don't be doing that. So I just try to just listen, and I try not to talk, because if I'm talking, they don't want to hear me. That's not the purpose of me being there. And so when I leave, I often feel like it was just really good. And I would share this with you. The Bible tells us, this Christian community, the Bible tells us to visit people in the jail and to visit people who are sick. And when I go, I always ask God to bless me as I go. Send me to the rooms I should go in. Keep me out of the rooms I shouldn't go, because it's a big hospital. And bless me with the strength and energy to get through the morning, and give me the words to say and the prayers to lift. And when I feel like when I do that, I'm in the center of God's will. And I feel like it's just easy then. It's just go around and it's easy. And I credit Reverend Rachel for all she's done, and John. The atmosphere in the hospital at UHS has been the best it's ever been. It's just things. There's an atmosphere change there, and so I recommend it. And if you know someone who likes to do that, I recommend anyone can do it, because there's someone there who will connect with you. Maybe connect better with a woman or with a man, but you go with what you got, And so that's me. So there you go.
Some other things I was thinking about while I was sitting there is that chaplains do sit in all sorts of different places too. When we have organ donation, we do something called the Walk of Honor. The chaplain usually goes in with the family before that, and then walks. Again, if you see the pit, they do actually. That's a good representation of it. It always chokes me up. Doesn't matter what the situation is, and it's always beautiful. So we do different rituals. On Ash Wednesday, we do have Ash Wednesday ashes in our interfaith chapels. We have, for our perinatal, there's blessings that we do for those who have lost babies, no matter what time they've lost the baby. If it's been in the last 6 months or it's been 10 years ago, they're invited and we do a blessing. And they have it once a year. That one's always a hard one, but beautiful. We have different things coming up, like there's Patient Experience Week, and there's Nurses Week, where you saw there's a picture that John had up there. You're probably like, why does Rachel have her hands out like she's doing voodoo? I was not doing voodoo. I was blessing their hand. And that's always very meaningful. Many of the nurses will come because we're blessing the work that they do. And we will do that with any of our staff members, but since that's Nurses Week, we particularly focusing on the nurses. I'm trying to think. There's lots of different rituals that we have been part of, and it seems like we are getting asked to do more of those things. So, if you think that this is something that you'd be interested in, or John has a little sheet and we can contact you. The first step is having an interview with me and discerning if that's the right fit. And if it is the right fit, then you go through volunteer services and they have to do their onboarding stuff. And then you come back to the spiritual care department and you meet with one of our staff chaplains. We have different groupings. I have some chaplains, volunteers who specifically just want to go to their own faith tradition. It's usually my Catholic folks, and that's fine because we do have a large Catholic population, and many of our Catholic patients want Eucharist, and so our Catholic folks can do that, provide that. We have others who, like you heard from Bob, who go just to everywhere except for no visitation. You have some folks who specialize in specific things, like Pastor Ernie with cardiac. Faye, Chaplain Faye, actually, she won what's the breakfast that they do?
Lives of commitment.
Lives of Commitment. She's one of my volunteers, and she specializes in palliative, so end of life. She was an RN, and she has special training as a death doula too. So, and she's also one of the I don't know if you know the nursing guard that's in the Southern Tier. She's one of those folks, and they do this really special ritual where when a nurse passes, that they come in with those beautiful capes, and they have this special ceremony to say you were relieved of your duties with the Florence Nightingale oath, which is, if you ever have a chance to see it, it is, it's amazing. So we have different folks with different specialties. So if you specifically are like, I can't walk very far, but I could go to one unit, and that's what I want to do. We ask for 2 hours a week, but we also know volunteers are volunteers. So like, you go on your vacation. We want you to go on vacation. Bob went to Florida, and I was like, have fun, get a tan while we're all freezing up here. Or if you have health events or life events and you need to take a pause, want you to do that. So, if you do feel like that's something you're interested in, we have a sign-up sheet. If you know somebody else who might be interested in it, please talk to them about this, and you can refer them to the spiritual care department at UHS or contact the Broome County Council of Churches. We are looking for people of all different faith traditions. We're starting to branch out. I have a Muslim volunteer chaplain, and she's a retired doctor, and she's amazing. And she just invited one of her friends. So that's how people find out, is by word of mouth. And my best volunteers are usually volunteered by somebody who said, this is the thing. So know if it's not your thing, but maybe it's somebody else's thing. And you might be the person to help them figure that out. At this point, though, I do want to give you space, because we're a little bit past 7, to ask questions. There's things that bubbled up while you were listening to us to talk about things, or if there's something that you're wondering about. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that we're always interested in, apart from actually becoming a chaplain, is how we can support the chaplaincy.
Sure.
Like with the jail ministry, we're now working on books and CDs for their reading program.
Yeah. So money is always good. That's one of the ways. I say that because I am currently the only full-time chaplain at the hospital. That's with my contracted staff. It would be great if I could have more than one of me. As you can imagine, we have a pretty robust volunteer services, and my staff chaplains are great, but all of them are part-time, and so they have to have other positions. So if y'all are feeling like this is something that is a mission, that would be one of the places, and actually does help. Even a little bit would help towards be able to, if you know anything about grants, they usually want to see if that you have other sources that are coming in. So that's one of the things. We also have tons and tons of resources, which that could, if you're like, oh, we want to give you something, you could buy us stuff. We have these booklets called Pain at the End of Life that we give out to families if they're figuring that out. This is the 11th hour. If you're a caretaker and you're trying to figure out what does death look like, we give out resources like this. We have interfaith booklets that we give out. All of these cost things. So if you're like, man, how could we support these? We do give stuff like this out. We also give out interfaith resources. We have One of the things that we have found recently is that larger print is really good. And it doesn't matter whether you're older or not. People just like larger print when you're in the hospital. It's just easier. So larger print, whatever, that's great. We do have a community. There's a behavioral health floor stuff, and particularly with children. If you feel like that's where your calling is, we always need resources like coloring books and things that they can do. Fidgets. I'm constantly giving out fidgets to my behavioral health kids. Soft things though. So if you're going to do it for behavioral health stuff, please make sure it's soft. It can't be anything that's bound and heavy for behavioral health. For our elderly folks, big print. For interfaith folks, we also have all sorts of interfaith stuff that we constantly need. Like we have prayer rugs. We could always use more. Kippas for Jewish folks. Could always use more of those. We do have a Buddhist community, like you said, the Lao community is here, and there's a strong Buddhist community in the area. Sometimes we'll hand out like little tiny laughing Buddhas to them. So any interfaith resources, or just money. And I don't say just money, like it'll be doubled or tripled in other ways. But that would be really super, super helpful. Or office supplies too, right? We could always use office supplies. Oh yeah, that's another one too. We have a gratitude card that we started with part of the grant money that we received from the Synod of the Northeast. We do that at BGH. We go around because it's a smaller hospital and take the cart, and there's candies and cards and faith books and stuff. So if you're like, I want to do something specific project, yeah, tea, lotion. It's like the best lotion. They also like the Ferrero Rocher. They like the Ferrero Rocher candies, which we can't afford. Yeah, we did. We made them into. Yeah, so we go around with this cart. We watched this. We watched a documentary, Still Small Voice. If you want to know more about chaplaincy, I would suggest that as a documentary to watch. It happened in New York City, and it was a documentarian who followed chaplains around during COVID. So if you want to see, and so we got the idea from that. They had this little gratitude card that they took around and gave to stuff to healthcare providers, and so we do that at BGH, and it's been a big hit and wonderful. So we could always, if you're like, we need a specific project, that would be the one that's an easy, low-hanging fruit. Yeah. So Ferrero Rocher, but we if you want to donate Ferrero Rocher, great.
Rachel,
yeah.
19 make it.
Yeah. BJ sometimes has a deal. That's why we had them initially, so that we made them all Ferrero Rocher junkies. So I don't know.
Rachel,
Yes.
you're talking about how you could utilize money. Who do we send it to? We don't just send it to the hospital.
Well, actually, you could.
Oh,
You could. There's two ways you can do it. That's not exactly true. You could either go through the Broome County Council of Churches and put it through the hospital ministry, or you could do it through the UHS Foundation. So the UHS Foundation funnels that money back to wherever people have designated it for. So it's actually interesting. Sam Lupo actually was the one that introduced me to that of the UHS Foundation while I was pastor at Northminster, and she jokes, her name's Corey, she was like, I think it's Sam's fault that you're working for us. So she actually teases Sam about that. So if you want to tease Sam about something, that you can blame Sam Lupo. But yeah, so there's two ways you can do it. You could either do it through the Council of Churches, or if you want it directly through UHS Foundation. It just depends on how you want to designate the funding. So yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
One quick question would be, with so many ambulatory type surgeries where you're in the morning and you're out at lunchtime, is there a puzzle piece for the chaplains to fit into that scenario at all?
If we're specifically asked to be there, we will go, but it's not as often if it's just rounding, because it's so quick. If somebody specifically were to say, hey, can you be there? We will make a point to be there. But if it's just you in and out, like, it's harder to find you. Sometimes it's even harder to find you in in the chart because you're like there before and then you're already out the door. So we can, and I have done that. I know some of my other folks have done that too. Yeah. So it is possible. Yeah. But
I
you have
didn't
to,
know if it was part of your, like, you would walk through there
we don't have enough staff to just
morning
walk
or
through at
anything?
this point, which is back to my other point.
You need
But
more.
if you ask us specifically to come, we will be there. So for reference from me, I'm at Binghamton General and Wilson primarily, but I also sometimes am at Vestal Salinger. Sometimes I go out to Delaware Valley Hospital for some things. Sometimes I go out to the Shenango Hospital. Sometimes I'm over at Ideal on Wednesday afternoons. So there is only one full-time me. So I'll just keep saying that. Yeah. So I mean, John's half there, so but he's not quite 100% there. So yeah. So yeah, if we can expand our staff, we would be able to do more. And our volunteer base too. That's one of the things that's super helpful about our volunteers is that they're able to go into some of the less critical spaces, and that frees up the staff to be able to go in more critical spaces or spaces that are specifically asked for a chaplain. So it works together. It all works together. That's a good question. Yeah. Anybody else?
I do want to thank you because when my sister was in the hospital last year, you were there by her side, and that meant a lot to me. And Pat came and prayed over her too. She had some difficulties last year, but I'm actually very surprised that UHS does so well with this when Lourdes is supposed to be our Catholic hospital, and that it was, and they're losing chaplains. So I'm very grateful that this exists. And I just want to say thank you very much for all that you do. And we'll meet after and we'll figure out, see if we can do a project and get in touch with you, see what we can put together.
What's the training like to become a volunteer chaplain?
So you go with me or one of my staff chaplains and you follow us around. Like you get to follow us. We ask like what sort of background you have. So like when Faye came in, I'll use Faye as an example. I knew she was an RN and I knew she was a death stool. So for her, this was like, I'm swimming in water, you know. I have another chaplain. Her name is Erica. She's a PhD student in bioethical engineering at Binghamton University. I mean, like high level, and she's bilingual. But she admittedly said the reason she felt called to it because she had a family member who had been in the hospital, just like what Mary Jane was talking about, and felt called that she wanted to do this. But this was really out of her like purview. So we require at least 2 trainings. So the first one is following a staff chaplain around, and the second time is we're following you. For some folks, after the 2, they're like, great, got it, good, go. For other folks, like my chaplain, Erica, she was like, can you please let me like do some more? And I 100% would do more. At that point, you're trained to be in like the less critical places. If somebody wants to be in a more critical place, then that's when we encourage you to go on to take 1 unit of CPE. I require that of even my volunteers. And so one small thing, this has become like part of my own like passion is feel like educating others about how to care for others. So I'm in the process of finishing my clinical pastoral education. I'm going into my 4th unit, but my plan is to go on to become a trainer of chaplains. So, which would also mean that there'd actually be somebody in the Southern Tier who's training other chaplains, like, cause there's nobody here. So that's why Crossroads of Caring has been awesome, but it's been like this like thing. So that's the other piece. So right now, if I do have one volunteer who said that she's kind of interested in doing more, and she's hoping to apply to a unit of CPE, and that would be in the fall. I'm the preceptor right now, but they have an educator who's awesome in Rochester, and they do that. But yeah, so if you want to do more critical stuff, then have to have a little more training. But if you just want to go and unless you're Bob and you just know everybody already, So that's part of the reason why Ernie can be in the more critical spaces, though, is he has 40 units of CPE.
7 years.
Yeah.
14 years.
So, um,
Talked about 5-hour Zoom meetings.
Yeah. so it's if you do want unit of CPE, it's through Crossroads of Caring. It's a 6 months, so it's an extended care thing. If you were to go to Upstate, which is the other place where you can get CPE, you have to go physically up to Syracuse and do the training. And you can do the 40 hours, but you have to be. It's like 10 weeks of 40 hours, like a full-time job of CPE. So that's why Crossroads of Caring is a little more realistic for adults, in my opinion. Like when I was in seminary, I did the other one and it was great, but most of us have other things that we're doing. So at this point, and at least I can speak for my own season of life that yeah.
So
And there's also breaks in the middle too. Yeah.
20 of those calls.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just when you go, it's how you go to class. Go into class.
But if you just want to do regular volunteering, you don't have to do CPE. You don't need that. You can. We do the training in-house, and we just ask for 2 hours after that. So, yeah. So it just depends on what you're feeling. Good question. Yeah. Anybody else? This is a question we ask in CPA. Anybody else? Would anybody like to join me? What I hear you saying, yeah, I'm curious about. Well, thank you so much for asking us to be part of this. I hope that if you think of anything else that you wished you had known about, or if somebody who's listening online has a question, you can always contact us. You know how to get a hold of me, or it's spiritual care office, or John over our hospital ministry. And you know one of the volunteers, he's here at Northminster. So,
Yeah, get it quick.
yep.
Or want to talk about it, I'm available.
Yep. I think it would be appropriate to pray us out if that's all right with y'all. Yep. Dearest and gracious God, we all come from different places, spaces. Sometimes the spaces are within ourselves, the ones that we've acknowledged and the ones that we have fenced off. As we go out into this world, remind us to let those fences go, to know that grace abounds in the midst of us, in the midst of the people that we meet, and that we search for Christ's love in all that we are and all that we're about, and seek for it in each other, people that we meet, those who are difficult and the ones that are less difficult. Sometimes that's within ourselves and with others. Holy One, be with us, go with us from this space to provide light, love, and peace in all that we meet and all that we are. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you, everybody.